Let's begin by stripping away the whimsy. Forget the John Williams score, forget the cozy fireplaces, and forget the childhood nostalgia. If we are to take the existence of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry seriously, we have to look at it not as a fairy tale, but as an anomaly of physics so profound that it implies a completely different understanding of the structure of our universe. If Hogwarts exists, right now, somewhere in the Scottish Highlands, hidden from satellite imagery and local hikers, then everything we know about the standard model of particle physics is either wrong or inextricably incomplete. Let's start with the most obvious barrier: concealment. In the lore, they call them Muggle-repelling charms, or suggest that the castle simply looks like a ruin to the untrained eye. But scientifically, to hide a structure of that magnitude, a massive stone castle, complete with shifting architecture and thermal output, requires technology that borders on the manipulation of light and cognition simultaneously. We are not talking about simple camouflage. We are talking about metamaterials capable of negative refractive indices, bending the visible light spectrum around an object so perfectly that the photons arrive at the observer's eye as if they had traveled through empty space. But even that isn't enough, because a satellite would spot the thermal signature, the infrared heat leaking from those thousands of torches. So, Hogwarts must be a thermodynamic sink, trapping 100% of its waste heat, or, more terrifyingly, it exists in a folded dimension. Think of a Calabi-Yau manifold in string theory, hidden dimensions compacted so small we cannot perceive them. If wizards have found a way to macroscopically expand a pocket of four-dimensional space-time, Hogwarts doesn't just sit on the hill, it sits orthogonal to the hill. It occupies a space that is geometrically adjacent to our reality, but causally disconnected until one crosses a specific threshold. Platform 9 3/4 is not a magical wall. It is an Einstein-Rosen bridge, a stable wormhole held open not by exotic matter, our equations predict, but by a localized manipulation of the quantum vacuum. And this brings us to the energy problem. This is the part that keeps physicists awake at night. Magic, by definition in this world, violates the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. When a student casts incendio to create fire, or aguamenti to create water, where is that energy coming from? You cannot get output without input. If a human body, which runs on roughly 2,000 calories a day, essentially the energy of a faint light bulb, can suddenly unleash a bolt of lightning or levitate a boulder, the energy is not coming from their biological metabolism. If it were, one spell would instantly consume all the ATP in their cells, and they would drop dead from metabolic collapse. Therefore, a wizard is not a generator. A wizard is a conductor. They are biological interfaces for a background energy field that we muggles are entirely blind to. Perhaps they are tapping into zero-point energy, the fluctuating quantum energy that exists in the vacuum of space. The wand is likely not just a stick of wood, but a focusing array, a lattice of organic material containing a core, phoenix feather, dragon heartstring, that acts as a room temperature superconductor, channeling this ambient vacuum energy into a directed state. This suggests that the words they speak, the incantations, are not magic spells, but rather psycholinguistic triggers. Much like a specific frequency can shatter glass, perhaps specific resonant frequencies produced by the vocal cords, combined with the specific mental state of the user, collapse a probability wave. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect states that measuring a system changes it. Wizards might be super observers. Their consciousness is so entangled with the fabric of reality that when they visualize a feather floating and say the trigger word, they are literally rewriting the local probability of the feather's gravitational interaction. They aren't lifting it. They are altering the variable of gravity in a localized bubble around the object. This makes Hogwarts not a school of magic, but a training facility for biological reality warpers who are learning to edit the source code of the universe without accidentally deleting the operating system. And what of the biology? If this is genetic, and we know it is because heritage matters in this world, then we are looking at a divergence in the Homo sapiens genome that is staggering. The magic gene isn't just coding for eye color, it's coding for a specialized lobe in the brain or a nervous system capable of handling high energy transfer. It implies that at some point in evolutionary history, a branch of humanity developed a symbiotic relationship with this dark energy field. Muggles are the control group. Wizards are the mutation. But consider the implications of the squib, someone born to wizards with no power. This suggests the trait is recessive or relies on complex epigenetics. If Hogwarts exists, it is a sanctuary for a transhuman subspecies that possesses the power to solve our energy crisis overnight. A single Lumos charm violates entropy. If we could hook a wizard up to a copper coil, could we power a city? This is why they hide. Not to protect themselves from our pitchforks, but to protect themselves from our insatiable need for resources. We would not burn them. We would industrialize them. We would turn Hogwarts into a power plant. The statute of secrecy is the only thing preventing the total commodification of their biology. And yet, there is a darker implication to their physics. Time turners. The ability to manipulate causality. If they can move backward in time, they are navigating closed, time-like curves. In general relativity, this usually requires infinite rotating cylinders, or black holes. If a handheld device can do it, then the wizarding world has solved the equation for quantum gravity, the holy grail of modern physics. And they use it to take extra classes. Let's push the physics further, past the energy source, and into the terrifying reality of matter manipulation. In the Hogwarts curriculum, they call it transfiguration. A student points a wand at a wooden matchstick and turns it into a steel needle. To a child, this is a parlor trick. To a physicist, this is an act of nuclear synthesis so violent, it should level the entire castle. Consider the atomic structure. Wood is cellulose, lignin, water, mostly carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Steel is iron and carbon. To transmute wood into iron, you are not just rearranging atoms. You are changing the number of protons in the nucleus. You are engaging in low-energy nuclear reactions. In our world, to fuse or fission elements requires the heat of a star or a particle accelerator. If a student successfully changes the atomic weight of an object, strictly following Einstein's E equals mc squared, the binding energy released or absorbed during that transition would be catastrophic. Turning a teapot into a tortoise isn't just biology. It's a rearrangement of mass that should arguably release enough gamma radiation to sterilize the classroom. Since this doesn't happen, since McGonagall's hair doesn't fall out from radiation poisoning, we have to assume that wizards are not just manipulating matter, but are shunting mass into and out of that hidden dimension we hypothesized earlier. When they turn a heavy desk into a pig, the excess mass isn't destroyed. It is displaced into the subspace manifold. When they turn a match into a needle, they are borrowing mass from the vacuum. They are treating the conservation of mass not as a law, but as a suggestion. This brings us to the mechanics of travel. Apparition. The ability to disappear from one point in space and appear instantly in another. The sound described in the text is a loud crack or pop. This is scientifically consistent. If a human body, volume roughly 70 liters, suddenly vanishes, it creates a vacuum bubble that instantly collapses, and the surrounding air rushes in at supersonic speeds, creating a sonic boom. The crack is thunder. But the mechanism of travel itself implies macroscopic quantum tunneling. They are dematerializing their biological structure, converting their mass into a waveform or pure information, transmitting it across space, and rematerializing. The risk mentioned, splinching, where parts of the body are left behind, is the most horrific confirmation of this theory. Splinching is a failure of data transmission. It is quantum decoherence. If the wave function of the wizard's left leg interacts with the environment differently than the torso during transit, the probability amplitudes decouple. The leg materializes at the origin, the body at the destination. It is the Star Trek transporter problem, but controlled entirely by the human mind. The mental focus required, destination, determination, deliberation, suggests that the coordinate calculation is done intuitively by the wizard's brain. They are biological supercomputers calculating vector calculus in real time to ensure they don't rematerialize inside a wall. Now, look at the castle itself. Hogwarts is described as having stairs that change, rooms that move, and a room, the room of requirement, that becomes whatever the user needs. We usually dismiss this as enchantment, but structurally, this implies that Hogwarts is built with programmable matter. The castle is not a static stone structure. It is a semi-sentient, adaptive architectural organism. The moving staircases are likely responding to a localized gravity manipulation or a spatial warping where the coordinates of up and down are fluid. The room of requirement is the ultimate expression of this, a pocket dimension composed of nanostructured material that reconfigures based on a telepathic interface. You think you need a bathroom, and the room reads your neural patterns, accessing a blueprint library, and assembles the matter instantly. This suggests the castle is not just a building, it is a machine that has perhaps been running for 1,000 years, possibly developing a rudimentary AI, which explains the personality of the Sorting Hat. The hat isn't a magical rag, it's a cerebral scanner. It maps the neural pathways of a student, analyzes their dopamine triggers, their fear response, their dominance hierarchies, ambition versus bravery, and sorts them into the peer group that will maximize their psychological development. It is a predictive behavioral algorithm placed on your head, and we cannot ignore the entities that patrol the perimeter. Dementors. They are described as beings that suck the happiness and eventually the soul out of a victim, leaving the room freezing cold. Scientifically, a Dementor is a walking heat sink. It is an entity of pure entropy. In thermodynamics, entropy is the measure of disorder, the trend towards coldness and lack of energy. Life is the fight against entropy. We burn energy to stay warm, to move, to think. Dementors feed on this ordering energy. When they approach, the temperature drops because they are endothermic absorbers of such magnitude that they drain the thermal energy from the air and the bioelectric energy from your nervous system. The happiness they eat is the serotonin and dopamine signaling in your brain. They are parasitic energy vampires. The Patronus charm, the only defense, is a projection of pure positive emotion, a concentrated burst of high-frequency bioluminescence that overloads the Dementor's absorption capacity. You are essentially feeding the black hole so much light that it chokes. But the most disturbing aspect of Hogwarts physics remains the soul. In this universe, the soul is a quantifiable physical object. We know this because of Horcruxes. A wizard can tear a piece of their soul off and attach it to an object. This implies the soul is a cohesive energy field or a coherent information packet that resides within the body, but is distinct from the biology. It is the software of the consciousness. To split it is to copy the source code and store a backup on an external hard drive. This confirms dualism. The mind and body are separate. If you can anchor your consciousness to a gold locket, you have achieved digital immortality. Voldemort wasn't just a dark wizard. He was a transhumanist pioneer who refused to let his hardware failure, death, erase his software. He distributed his consciousness across a cloud network of artifacts. Hogwarts, then, is not a school. It is a research fortress protecting the knowledge of how to hack the physical laws of death, matter, and space-time. And they teach this to 11-year-olds. Let's descend into the dungeons for the final piece of this puzzle: potions. If wand work is physics, the manipulation of energy and forces, then potions is the supreme mastery of chemistry and biology. But we are not talking about simple reactions like mixing baking soda and vinegar. We are talking about alchemical programming. Consider Felix Felicis, or liquid luck. If a student drinks a vial and suddenly gets lucky, they haven't changed the world. They have changed their interaction with probability. Scientifically, this potion creates a state of stochastic resonance within the user. It turns the drinker into a localized probability anchor. Every unconscious choice they make, which hallway to walk down, when to duck, what word to say, is guided by a subconscious precognition that aligns with the best-case scenario outcome. It is Maxwell's demon in liquid form, sorting through infinite quantum timelines and steering the user toward the one singular path where they succeed. This implies that Hogwarts isn't just teaching chemistry. They are distilling the mathematical concept of success into a digestible enzyme. Or look at Polyjuice Potion. To physically transform into another person requires more than a disguise. It requires a total genetic overwrite. The potion contains the essence of the target, a hair, a nail clipping. This is the DNA sample. The potion acts as a retrovirus, creating a rapid, temporary, systemic rewrite of the drinker's entire cellular structure to match the target's phenotype. It is aggressive, accelerated gene therapy that should be excruciating, essentially melting and reforming the body's protein structure in seconds. The fact that they use this for espionage instead of curing cancer tells you everything you need to know about the priorities of wizarding society. And finally, we must look at the epicenter of their science, the Department of Mysteries. This is not a government office. It is a containment facility for cosmic anomalies. In the center of the death chamber stands an ancient stone archway with a tattered veil through which one can hear whispers. If you step through, you die. No body is recovered. This is the most terrifying object on the planet. Scientifically, the veil is a localized event horizon. It is a stable tear in the fabric of space-time, an aperture to the other side, whether that is a dimension of pure consciousness or the actual afterlife. The Ministry of Magic built their entire government around a portal to the realm of the dead. They are studying the physics of the soul. In the Hall of Prophecy, they store glass orbs that contain the future. This confirms a deterministic universe. If a prophecy can be recorded and stored, it means the future has, in some fourth-dimensional sense, already happened. Free will is an illusion. The wizards know this. They have quantified fate. They treat time not as a flowing river, but as a solid block of geography that can be viewed, rewound, and navigated. So, if Hogwarts exists, what does that make us? What does that make the Muggles? We look at the stars and build rockets to reach them. We study atoms to build power plants. We are the tool users. We build external technology to compensate for our biological limitations. Wizards are the technology. They have internalized the power of the universe into their own blood. If they exist, humanity is not one species, but two. We are the control group, struggling in the dark, obeying the laws of physics. They are the administrators, holding the cheat codes, capable of rewriting the simulation. The reason they hide isn't fear, it's pity. Or perhaps, it's conservation. If we truly knew, that a few words could fix a broken spine, or that a potion could bottle luck, or that death was just a veil you could walk through, our civilization would collapse. We would stop inventing. We would stop building. We would simply demand magic. Hogwarts is hidden because if the barrier falls, the scientific age of man ends and the age of gods begins. And the terrifying truth is, we wouldn't be the gods. We would be the subjects. So, keep looking for the castle on the hill, but pray you never find it, because if you do, everything you think you know about your place in the universe becomes obsolete. Let's push this thought experiment to its absolute limit. Conflict. If Hogwarts exists, it is not just a school, it is a strategic military asset in a Cold War that has lasted for centuries. We need to analyze the power dynamic between the wizarding world and the modern military-industrial complex. Fans often assume wizards are invincible because of the Avada Kedavra killing curse. But scientifically and tactically, the killing curse is an inefficient weapon. It requires line of sight, a spoken incantation or intense mental focus, and arm movement. It projects a beam of green light that travels at a subluminal speed, visible enough that teenagers can dodge it behind tombstones. Compare that to a modern sniper rifle. A .50 caliber bullet travels faster than the speed of sound. If a wizard and a sniper face off, the wizard is dead before the sound of the gunshot even reaches their ears to trigger a shield charm. The Protego shield creates a barrier against physical and magical force, but does it have the kinetic threshold to stop a tungsten rod dropped from orbit? Does it have the frequency modulation to block hard radiation or a shockwave from a thermobaric vacuum bomb? This suggests that the Statute of Secrecy is actually a treaty of survival for the wizards. In the Middle Ages, a wizard could easily dominate a village of peasants armed with pitchforks. But today, the Ministry of Magic cannot compete with the surveillance state. We have satellites, thermal drones, and facial recognition. A wizard on a broomstick is not a bird. On radar, it has the radar cross-section of a human traveling at 80 miles per hour without a transponder. That is an airspace violation. The fact that the RAF hasn't scrambled jets to intercept a Quidditch match implies that wizards are actively hacking our technology. They must be using techno-magic, spells specifically designed to scramble electromagnetic frequencies, spoof GPS signals, and erase digital server logs. This makes them the world's most advanced cyber terrorists, capable of dismantling the internet or the stock market with a wave of a wand without ever touching a keyboard. And look at the biological weapons they keep as pets. A dragon. In biology, a creature that size with that wingspan should not be able to fly. The square cube law says it is too heavy. This means dragon bones are likely filled with hydrogen or a lighter-than-air gas byproduct of their digestion, making them essentially dirigibles with teeth. And their fire? To project a jet of flame requires a fuel source and an ignition system. They likely have glands that synthesize a hypergolic propellant, two fluids that ignite upon contact with air, similar to rocket fuel. Then there is the basilisk, a snake that kills with eye contact. This defies standard toxicology. It implies the basilisk emits a focused, high-frequency radiation beam, or a psionic pulse from its optic nerves that induces immediate, massive cerebral hemorrhaging in the victim. It is a biological death ray. The mandrake, a plant whose cry is fatal. This is weaponized sonics. The frequency produced by the mandrake root resonates at the exact natural frequency of the human skull or nervous system, liquefying organs through sound pressure alone. Hogwarts is cultivating weapons of mass destruction in a greenhouse. Finally, consider the ultimate violation, legilimency and memory charms, the ability to read minds and erase memories. If this exists, the concept of justice and history is broken. A wizard can commit a crime, walk into the police station, and rewrite the memory of every witness and officer. They can edit the autobiography of the human race. This is the scariest part of their science, the malleability of the human mind. If they exist, we cannot trust our own memories. Did you really lose your keys? Or did a wizard need to borrow your car and then erase the event? Is that déjà vu a glitch in the Matrix? Or is it a sloppy memory wipe? If Hogwarts is real, then we are living in a reality where our perception of the past is entirely at the mercy of a hidden elite who can cut and paste our experiences like a video editor. The terrifying conclusion is that they don't just control the physics of the world, they control the narrative of our lives. We are not just muggles. We are NPCs, non-player characters, in their game, programmed to ignore the glitches, ignore the owls in the daytime, and ignore the impossible castle on the hill. We have discussed the physics of war and the physics of the soul, but we have ignored the most disruptive aspect of a magical society, the economics of infinity. If Hogwarts exists, then the fundamental rules of global capitalism are a sham. Our entire economy is based on scarcity. Things have value because they are rare or hard to produce. But in the wizarding world, scarcity is artificial. Consider the spell Reparo. In our world, if you crash a car or break a window, that is a loss of capital. It requires labor, resources, and money to replace. In their world, entropy is reversible. A broken object is not lost value. It is a momentary inconvenience. This means the concept of depreciation does not exist. A wizard could theoretically use the same pair of shoes for 500 years, repairing them molecularly every day. Now, consider the Geminio curse, the duplication spell. If you can duplicate matter, why is there poverty in the wizarding world? Why are the Weasleys poor? This is the smoking gun. It proves that the limitations of magic, like Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration, which states you cannot create food out of nothing, are not laws of physics. They are laws of legislation. They are artificial constraints programmed into the fabric of magic to prevent economic collapse. If every wizard could conjure a banquet and duplicate gold, the galleon would be worthless, and society would dissolve into anarchy. The Ministry of Magic isn't just regulating secrecy. They are regulating the means of production to maintain a class structure. They are enforcing poverty on a population that has the power to live in a post-scarcity utopia. The existence of a wizard currency is a farce. They use gold coins, physical fiat, because they need a control mechanism. If they let the physics of magic run wild, value would drop to zero. Thus, Hogwarts is an indoctrination center teaching children not just how to use magic, but when not to use it, to uphold a crumbling economic system. And what runs this economy? House elves. Let's look at them through the lens of evolutionary biology. A humanoid species with distinct morphology, large eyes for low-light environments, bat-like ears for high-frequency hearing, that is biologically compelled to serve. This is not natural selection. In nature, no species evolves to be a slave. Every organism evolves to survive and reproduce for itself. This suggests that house elves are not a natural species. They are a genetically engineered servitor race created thousands of years ago by ancient wizards. They are biological robots. Their DNA has been spliced with a loyalty imperative so strong that disobeying an order causes physical pain. This is hard-coded psychological conditioning. Furthermore, their magic is different. They can apparate within Hogwarts when wizards cannot. This implies their connection to the background energy field operates on a different frequency, a backdoor frequency that bypasses the security protocols set up by wizards. They are the maintenance crew of the reality simulation, given root access to the code, but programmed never to use it against the administrators. This leads us to the planetary surveillance grid known as the Trace. The Ministry knows immediately if an underage wizard uses magic in a Muggle zone. How? This isn't a spell cast on a person. It is a geostationary monitoring system. It suggests that the magic gene emits a unique radiological or subspace signature. Every wizard is a walking beacon. The Ministry has essentially enveloped the British Isles in a sensor net, a magical ionosphere that triangulates these signatures in real time. When a child casts Lumos, they create a spike in the local energy field. The Trace detects the amplitude and frequency of that spike, matches it to the biometric signature of the child, and dispatches a warning. This is a panopticon. It is total surveillance. It means that privacy in the wizarding world is non-existent. If they can track a spell, can they track a thought? Can they track a conversation? The technology to detect magic implies the ability to detect the bioelectric output of the brain itself. Finally, look at the stars, centaurs. They practice divination by reading planetary alignment. We dismiss astrology, but in a universe where magic is real, the movement of celestial bodies might actually exert a measurable gravitational or quantum-entangled influence on terrestrial events. If the universe is holographic, as some modern physicists suggest, then the macrocosm, stars, and the microcosm, human events, are linked. Mars being bright isn't a metaphor. It's a measurement of high energy output from the planet that correlates with aggression hormones in biological life on Earth. Centaurs aren't mystics. They are statisticians. They have observed the dataset for so long, thousands of years, that they have mapped the correlation between orbital mechanics and political instability. They are calculating the future using orbital trajectories. Hogwarts, situated in the Forbidden Forest, sits right next to a colony of beings who have mathematically solved the chaos theory of history, and the wizards ignore them because of species arrogance. This reinforces the tragedy. The wizards have the tools to understand the universe, but they lack the scientific method to apply them, leaving them stagnant, hiding in a castle, waving sticks, while the centaurs watch the clockwork of the cosmos tick, down to the end. We arrive now at the ultimate question, the one that transcends physics and biology and enters the realm of existential philosophy. If this civilization possesses the power to rewrite reality, to cheat death, and to ignore the laws of thermodynamics, why are they hiding on Earth? Why haven't they colonized the solar system? With a bubblehead charm and an endless supply of duplicated air, they could live on Mars tomorrow. They could apparate to the moon. They could use port keys to traverse the galaxy. The fact that they haven't brings us to the most sobering scientific conclusion of all. Magic is an evolutionary dead end. It is the great filter. Consider the trajectory of human, Muggle, history. We advanced from stone tools to the Large Hadron Collider because we were weak. We were cold, so we mastered fire. We were slow, so we built the wheel. We were earthbound, so we built the Saturn V rocket. Our limitation was the catalyst for our innovation. Struggle is the engine of our species. But wizards? They have no struggle. If you are cold, you wave a wand. If you are hungry, you duplicate food. If you are sick, you drink a potion. When the solution to every problem is a literal magic word, the drive to innovate creates a flat line. This is why their society is stuck in a perpetual aesthetic stasis of the 17th century. They still use quills and parchment, not because they are quaint, but because they stopped inventing. They have no concept of the internet, no understanding of spaceflight, no grasp of artificial intelligence, because they never needed them. They are trapped in a local maximum of comfort. They are a civilization that peaked in the Middle Ages and has been rotting in stagnation ever since. This suggests that the statute of secrecy protects us, but in a way we didn't expect. It isolates the magic variable so that the rest of humanity can continue to evolve. If we had access to magic, we would stop building. We would stop trying to understand the universe and simply force it to obey us. Magic would act as a narcotic for the entire human race, ending our technological ascension. We would become like them, powerful but static, arrogant but ignorant. We would trade the stars for a comfortable fireplace. And there is a final, darker physics to consider, the obscurus. We know that when a magical child suppresses their power, it creates a parasitic dark force that erupts in violent, uncontrollable destruction. Scientifically, This is the psychological accumulation of potential energy turning into kinetic chaos. Now, apply that to the universe. If magic is the manipulation of the background source code of reality, there must be a tolerance limit. You cannot keep hacking the system before the system crashes. Perhaps the reason we don't see wizard civilizations spanning the galaxy is that eventually every magical civilization triggers a vacuum decay event. They push the laws of physics too far, trying to achieve godhood, and they destabilize the Higgs field, wiping themselves out at the speed of light. Hogwarts, then, is not a wonderland. It is a pressure valve. It is a facility designed to teach dangerous mutants how to let off steam in small, controlled doses, turning teacups into tortoises, so they don't accidentally blow a hole in the space-time continuum and erase the solar system. The Ministry of Magic is actually a bomb squad, constantly monitoring the countdown clock. So, if Hogwarts existed, it would mean that we, the Muggles, are the true protagonists of history. We are the ones playing the game on hard mode, and because of that, we are the ones who will inherit the stars. They are the remnants of a bygone era, clutching their wands in the dark, terrified of being discovered, terrified of their own potential, and terrified of the day we finally invent a technology that makes their magic look like a cheap card trick. Arthur C. Clarke said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But the reverse is also true. Any sufficiently analyzed magic is indistinguishable from science. And one day, we won't need a letter of acceptance. We will build our own castle. We will write our own spells in code and equations, and we will leave them behind, wondering where we went, while we drift among the nebulae they were too lazy to reach.